Welcome back to another episode of Embracing Magic with me, Steph, and my lovely co-host, Lizzie and Tony. Today's episode is going to be all about dark magic. We're going to be talking about the ethics of it, cursing, hexing, shadow work, and lots of other things. So we're going to start with, what is dark magic, Tony?
Oh, yes, a very good question, co-host Steph. I think that's subjective, really, because what does dark magic mean to you? For me, I don't really think there is a difference between dark magic and light magic. I think that they're all one and the same.
Interesting.
And witchcraft is about balance. So for me, nothing is off the cards, really.
Love that.
What about you, Lizzie?
I have to say that there is a part of me that I do get scared. Like I do genuinely.
Do you?
I do.
You like a horror film?
I really like a horror film, but there's something in me that does
Get scared of doing dark magic yourself.
Exactly. Like there is a.
But what is dark magic for you?
Dark magic for me is, I suppose, I lean now more into shadow work. And what I mean by that is facing my inner demons, really looking at them. And it's actually something for a long time I've really fought, because being this clowny, bubbly, light-hearted person, I guess, I think I've been scared even to go into my shadow and have a look at my demons. But actually, I have to say, going on this journey of shadow work, and my shadow work is through meditation. So I will sit really quietly in meditation and I will go to those past memories, thoughts about myself, feelings, whatever it might be, whatever mean little gremlin that comes up that is trying to tell me something. And I sit with it and I will ask questions, or it might be a feeling or a visualization. But for going to those dark places and almost like excavating them or popping them, or however you want to see it, when you come out of the meditation and you begin to live your life, you're in such a more harmonious state because you are, as you say, balanced, because you've gone there, you've witnessed those elements of yourself that are so difficult to connect with, but you're left in this more harmonious Zen-like state because you've been bold enough to go there. So I fought that for a long time. But my take on dark magic would be the shadow work side of things.
Is that what when you say you're scared, is that what you're scared of?
No. What do I mean I'm scared of?
That's what I was wondering, because I was like, you don't seem scared of shadow work.
No, I guess I get scared. I guess, do you know what it is for me?
Cursing and hexing.
Yeah, right. Thank you.
You just put words in her mouth.
No, but I was trying to think, what do I mean by I'm scared? I think it is cursing and hexing. I've never done it because I am scared of repercussions and what it might do to someone and what it might do to me. I know this probably sounds far-fetched.
But that means that you have a belief system that there's some kind of karmic retribution for performing.
Yes,
and where does that come from, I wonder?
Could it
Maybe
be
we should do a shadow exercise.
But yeah, and I think that is ingrained. That's an ingrained fear from childhood.
Yeah.
For sure. So even to kind of acknowledge it with you now will be in some way quite transformative, because I'll be saying there's this massive fear of doing hexing and cursing.
Yeah.
But then I was reading about it, and actually even doing a love spell is the same.
Because it's doing magic against someone's will.
Exactly.
Yeah, and there's all
the
kinds
same.
of ethics around consent and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But you know how I feel about shadow craft. I think that it is the only way to heal. I think you have to look inward and address all of those demons. And I think that you need to work through exercise. I think meditation is an amazing tool for that. But I feel like there's a process that you need to work through in order to really get down to the nitty and gritty. And I feel really passionate about shadow work.
Yeah.
But it's interesting what you've said about hexing and cursing.
There is, I feel in my body a physical sensation of fear.
Is there a fear around anything else for you? You've been reading Blood and Bones.
Well, do you know what? Reading Blood and Bones, incredible book, shout out. of blood and bones. Is it Kate? Oh, please.
Fuller.
I hope I don't say it wrong. Frula?
I shared it in the book
look at me.
episode, actually.
Yes, you did. Amazing
Frula.
book. Because what this book, I've only read a little bit of
Fowler.
it, but it is showing that the more harmonious and balanced you become with your craft and your witchcraft, the richer it is, but also more healing and transformative for you it is throughout it. And she was the one that was saying that in the light work of like doing a love spell or a positive affirmation versus a hex or a curse, it's the same. Whereas for me, I don't know, well, I do know why, it's ingrained, but I attach hexing and cursing as something, and I guess it is, like you say, karmic retribution. There's a fear in me.
That's quite a Christian attitude.
I
Totally.
mean, it probably comes up from growing up Catholic.
Yeah,
goes up
fire and brimstone.
100%. And it is like it's like an inner child wound, definitely, of thinking, I'm going to hurt someone or it's going to hurt me.
I mean, reading about like Italian folk magic, and I keep bringing that up, but it's literally what I'm reading about at the moment. A lot of it, the belief systems are based on fear.
Yeah.
Which, you know, fear of the evil eye, for example, that's big in Malta as well, and a lot of Mediterranean countries. And if you don't know at home, the evil eye is said to, if you were to glare at someone and give past them a envious look, or even actually in the Italian way, it's to, if you were to give a compliment to someone and not follow it up with God bless you, you would curse them. And then there's all sorts of rituals that they do around that, like spitting on the floor 3 times after that's been done. And
There'll be a lot of spit on the floor.
God.
yeah, there's loads of other things as well, like never leave your hair lying around on a brush.
Oh, right.
Because somebody could steal it and hex and curse you.
Whoa. Interesting.
Yeah, stuff like that. And and nail clippings as well. Always dispose of your nail clippings.
Well, probably because they could be used in witchcraft against you.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. That's exactly it.
Yeah,
Because they
same
could be
with the
used
hair. Yeah.
to curse you. So there's all these ways that they use to basically stop. There's loads of things in place to stop being cursed. Stop you from being cursed.
I have a
break
bit of a
cursing.
story about the evil eye situation, actually. When I was in high school, I don't know if I've told this story before. I might have told you, like, personally, but when I was 14, I got really badly bitten by a dog in the face, a Great Dane. Did I tell you the story?
Yeah.
Yeah, and this girl that I went to school with had actually told a bunch of my friends that she had cursed me, that she'd cursed that my face would get mangled. And then it literally did. You know, this dog bit like a hole through my lip and just missed my eye. And I had like stitches in my face. And it sort of happened out of nowhere because I remember saying to my mum, I really want to go and stay at my friend's house. And my mum kept saying, I really don't want you to go. I've got a really bad feeling about this. And I must have nagged her for about 2 weeks saying, I don't understand. She's a really good friend of mine. You've got no reason for me to not go. And she was like, I've got a really bad feeling about you going into that house. I really don't want you to go there. In the end, I wore her down. And the moment the door opened and they went, are you okay with dogs? I was like, yeah, fine. We've got a big dog at home. Not a problem. The dog came out and bit me straight away.
Immediately?
Like I hadn't even stepped into the house properly, and it came up and immediately bit me in the face. And I turned around and I was screaming and facing the wall, and her dad and stepmom were just crying. They were just crying and they didn't know what to do. They went and got frozen spoons out of the freezer for me to put onto my face, and then they wanted to drive me home to like apologize to my mum, and I was like, you've got to take me to hospital, my face is like hanging open. But anyway,
It's mental.
this idea of the evil eye, I really do believe that you can just send someone bad energy and they can receive that, you know. And I think that that's what was happening there, is she was sending me so much bad energy and I was vulnerable and unprotected and susceptible to it, and I just received it in a pretty bad way.
And that's why protection magic is so important.
Yeah, I got the tourmaline on. What does it mean to you though, hexing and cursing? Like, do you have any fear around that stuff?
I mean, I don't know if I have a fear of it. It's not something that I've necessarily used yet.
So watch out.
Watch out.
Be careful. If Willow comes
I've
for me, I know what's going on.
Definitely thought about it. I mean, there's some situations going on at the moment that it's made me think about doing something, intervening.
Yeah.
Just from a justice point of view. But yeah, I also feel that with doing this sort of magic, you have to be in the right place within yourself to do it. Because I feel like if you're in a really heightened emotional state, I don't feel like it's the best place to do that sort of thing. But yeah, it's not something that I have really considered before, because to me, my witchcraft and magic is all about kind of mostly being around sort of self-care and inner exploration. So, you know, I do a lot of shadow work within my practice. So, yeah, I suppose...
What kind of shadow work?
Well, really, like every moon ceremony, we're doing shadow work, right? We're journaling. Journaling's a huge one for me. But
is it a major one for you?
It's a major one.
I love that. Major.
Is journaling. And that's something that I've been doing for a long time. Journaling daily. I've lapsed a little bit recently.
You've been a bit busy.
But yeah, journaling's a huge one. And sometimes when you start actually journaling and you have like a question in front of you, it just pours out of you. And sometimes you let go, and sometimes the sentences don't make sense, you know, and you're just really getting to the bottom of what's going on internally. But also, I've been working with someone recently on going in and facing inner child trauma. So that's really deep work.
Yeah.
Deep shadow work. And you've got to be ready for it, I think, to face that. So yeah.
And dream work as well. You've been doing some dream work recently.
Would you say that's dark?
I would say that is shadow work. Yeah.
Yeah.
I personally, I would 100% say that that's shadow work, because it's about your subconscious connecting with your conscious, and you know, and you receiving messages.
Yeah. I suppose in a way, actually, ancestral witchcraft is kind of more on the darker side. Yeah. Because it's you know, you're looking back along your family line to kind of heal those areas, and it can bring up a lot of stuff.
Well, also you're communicating with spirits, essentially, which is
communicating with death.
Necromancy.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I think sometimes you can touch into the darker areas without even realizing. And I think probably a few years ago when I first started, I probably would have thought, you know, when you hear dark magic, I probably would have just thought it was, you know, literally just cursing and hexing people. But really, it's not. It's not.
See, this is the first point that I made. This is what I was saying. Like, there is no such thing as light and dark. They're the same. They are the natural balance. You can't have one without the other.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and you, whether you like it or not, you're going to get angry about stuff sometimes.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. And sometimes you, like, you know, I don't know whether your friend at the time intentionally, it sounded like she did because she was going around telling everyone, but sometimes you can unknowingly curse people.
Yeah.
If you're just feeling those feelings of anger or envy or those sort of things towards people.
Yeah.
You know, your power's strong.
You can also knowingly curse them, because I have.
And here we go.
Here we go.
No, I have hexed someone before. I hexed an ex. That feels like a song, doesn't it?
I hexed an ex.
Yeah,
Sorry.
there's a famous statue in Prague that is faceless, and it's said to it's hollow all the way down to hell, apparently. And if you write someone's name on a piece of paper and fold it away from you and throw it in, you're essentially sending them to hell. And I sent a very, very abusive ex to hell. And I think he probably is emotionally in hell right now. And I don't feel bad about it. But I embrace my darkness as well. You know, I don't feel shame or guilt about, I think that hexing and cursing is really natural part of witchcraft, and I don't believe in karmic retribution and things coming back threefold, or that's a Wiccan read, isn't it?
Right.
Yeah.
Do unto none harm something. Damn it. What is it, Steph?
I don't know.
No
I can't
harm,
remember.
No harm.
To another.
Let's not even try. It's just basically.
Let's not even try.
But it is something
it
like
will
don't
come
harm.
back to you threefold, basically.
Yeah, don't harm anyone else, or do no magic that causes harm. Fair enough. That sounds very nice. That's not my witchcraft. I don't believe it, and I think that I believe in really feeling the full spectrum of emotions. I've said that before, and I don't agree when people say rage is not a good emotion to feel, and you should feel and you should suppress it. And,
No way.
you should be regulated 100% of the time. It's
Impossible.
like I don't believe in. I don't agree with a more regulated life being one that's like silent and still. I think our bodies are meant to move, and I think we're supposed to flow with the ebb and flow of the universe. Nothing about our bodies is ever still. The way that our lungs move, the way that our skin moves, our heartbeat, our eyelashes, our hair, everything is always constantly in motion.
And
in the same
live
way,
and die all the time, don't we? Our blood is being reborn, regenerated every 7 seconds or something.
Yeah, cells, everything. You know, like our hair is growing and dying all the time. Like it's all part of this like continuous cycle. And I actually think it's healthier to feel anger and to express it. And that's why, whenever we face issues in our friendship or whatever, you'll always hear me say things immediately, because I don't believe in holding them in, because I think that's how disease begins. When we're holding dis-ease instead of disease. Yeah, same thing. I think it's the suppression of emotion. Like keeping your mouth shut and not saying how you feel. And it just creates resentment and I don't believe in it. I don't agree with it. I think that I would love to go to one of those retreats where you smash things up, because I have a lot of anger and passion that I want to feel. And I want to smash the shit out of some things. But I don't see it as being dark. I see it as embracing all aspects of life, from life to death, all the way through. I feel really passionately about it, as I'm sure you can tell.
We should probably touch on what cursing and hexing is. So
that's one for you, I think.
Cursing is a more long-term...
Slow burner.
So, yeah, a long-term effect type situation of cursing someone. And then the hex is kind of a short-term, quick, fiery, punchy...
Staccato.
Punch in the gut.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
So probably cursing is a little bit, would you say, more serious than hex?
I don't know. I think long term, because you get a lot. Okay, so it's very difficult, because I think that there is a question of ethics around what's justified. Obviously, that's down to the individual. But, I have spoken to people online that have literally cursed people with terminal illnesses. And being someone that is suffering a terminal illness, I just wouldn't wish this on anyone, not even the bad ex. I'd send him to hell.
But
quick. It's a quick, way to go. It's done,
Yeah, I feel,
into the mouth.
I feel like I would never do that to somebody.
No.
Yeah, I say that. I don't know. But I do think that is... I think that any spell work needs real consideration about whether something feels justified or not.
I also feel like you need to, like I was saying earlier, if you're in a heightened emotional state of anger, I don't think that is a good place to do a curse or a hex.
I think that's where the shadow work comes in, because then you can really do the inward work. You can actually work on whether there is an issue with yourself first, whether you've received the information correctly, whether you can put yourself in the other person's shoes and understand the way in which they behaved and where their words may have come from. But it's really tricky when it comes down to something like what I was talking about, like domestic violence, abuse. I think that's such a long-term thing to suffer, and it has so many repercussions in itself. I mean, for it domestic abuse is a curse in itself. It's it operates in exactly the same way.
Yeah.
What even is a curse? It's just your treatment of other people.
Yeah. I mean, what would you say is an example of a curse that somebody might do that isn't, you know, like an obvious one, like cursing them to have an illness or something like that?
Cursing them to like lose a job, to lose their partner. I think that people, they don't realize that love magic is very closely connected with cursing and hexing.
Yeah.
You know,
But I suppose in a way, like going back to the domestic violence thing, you could curse someone to lose their partner so that person isn't getting the suffering anymore.
exactly. Is that a bad thing? Is that dark? Does that make, do you feel fearful of that kind of a curse?
No, I don't, because I think had someone sent me a curse
Yeah.
to get rid of.
You'd have been stoked.
I've been over the moon.
Yeah.
So
Maybe
no.
they did.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, maybe. Did you?
Good point.
Thanks.
Yeah.
No, so that
I love
doesn't.
you pointed at Tony.
I was like,
and said
obviously
that.
me.
I was like, thanks, buddy.
Obviously.
No, but that doesn't, you see. So I think I think the fear that I have is almost, and I think that it's really interesting talking about it, because listening to sort of saying going into the shadow first and maybe then doing the grounding,
And then
evaluating
deciding
yourself,
whether
and
it's
then
necessary.
I kind of worry about, again, this is very old fashioned, I think probably is this the curse going wrong and it bouncing back to me. I guess that's what I'm probably not articulating.
I don't think that. No, you are articulating it well, but I think what you're doing is you're representing exactly what most people think of when it
Right.
comes to it, and that's ingrained from
100%.
patriarchal religion.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
I sort of feel the bounce back will.
And it's not just Christianity, because it's reflected through all these major religions.
Through everything.
You know, that you will be punished if
Yeah.
if you act out or you step out of line or you're a heretic, like you have a opinion that opposes the majority.
Yeah.
You know, and I just don't think it's true.
No.
At all.
I think it's really, it's so helpful, I'm sure, for anyone maybe who feels like I do, which is that there's this fear of stepping out or thinking that things are going to come back to you. And actually, there's actually something really held and contained in witchcraft when you're working with dark magic, that actually there's a real guide and protection for it. Like when we were talking about it then, I was like, okay, so I think there's a sort of thing of thinking you're out of control when you're doing a curse or a hex, that there's... again, like I was trying to articulate it, yeah, there's a lack of control. But actually, while we're talking about it, no, it is actually very considered, and thinking of the ethics involved is really important too.
I think a lot of people do, like Steph said, like will probably act emotionally.
Yes.
And, you know, I know that happens because I'm in groups with people that do act like that.
Right.
And I think, whoa,
Just
just
calm
take
down.
a
Hang
second,
on,
you know.
hang on.
But it's also not my place to say, because I really just don't agree with judging people on their practice. I think
course.
that the boundaries have to be set with them, by them, sorry. But I think when you said earlier about people being emotionally vulnerable in that state, the only time that I feel that way really is when we're talking about working with blood and spirits. There's no fear for me in it. I think that where there's an energy exchange and you're using a sacrifice item like blood, especially your own blood, I just feel like if someone's in a heightened emotional state, it just leaves them open to energy that they might not be wanting to welcome in.
Yeah. Okay.
You know, so I think that if you're going to use your own fluids for any kind of spellcraft, any kind of like ritual, there has to be a process of grounding and protection.
Yeah.
And it's the same with spirit work, you know, like if you're not confident with spirit work, then you could be opening up communication with someone that's not an ancestor or not someone that you're inviting in. And I do also worry about people and their mental health, and whether because there is a very fine line between actually communicating with spirits and being mentally unwell.
Yeah.
You know, and hearing voices. And it's very hard sometimes to distinguish between them, especially if you're someone with a very creative imagination. You know,
it's a really good
it's
point.
really tricky. But maybe we could touch on blood and bones and stuff like that, because what I find really interesting is that people can be so judgmental about the use of blood and bones in magic, yet that they have no consideration when it comes to eating meat. And, you know, they're quite happy to, take something off the shelf that has bones and blood in it, literally, and there's
Yeah,
no
that's a good
connection
point.
with it
Such a
at
good
all.
point.
I'm not saying people shouldn't eat meat. That's your choice. What I'm saying is that you receive something in a packet, there's no connection with it, and you throw it in the trash. You throw the bones away, you throw the blood, you wash the blood down the sink. And actually, when a witch uses bones and blood in their craft, they use it in the most respectful way. There's probably no more, what's the word, reciprocity? Is that like energy exchange?
Yeah.
There's no better reciprocity than in witchcraft. And part of my issue with the meat thing is I actually feel like I feel more comfortable with people that have been through the process of rearing an animal, loving it, giving it a good life and feeding it well, and then treating it like the sacred thing that it is, and killing it in an honorable way and feeding their family, using every part of it. You get that a lot with indigenous cultures, Sami culture and stuff like that in Finland and Sweden and Norway. And I think we've lost that connection.
Yeah.
And then we judge witches for using it in their craft without even educating ourselves properly on the way in which it's used. Like, for instance, we know that witches are using menstrual blood quite a lot now.
Yeah. That's in this book as well. I'm talking about all
and
the
it's
different fluids. That you
a
can use.
really accessible way to use blood without cutting yourself.
Yeah.
Because that is the way that they would often use it in the past, is they would take a knife and they'd cut themselves, or they'd take like a pine needle, or would take a needle or something and cut themselves. Whereas now people are, well, I'm sure that they used it then, but it's quite common knowledge that people are using menstrual blood and putting it on their altar, and or like when they are experiencing their bleed, they might like put some on their face and like honor the earth, like free bleed into the earth as well.
Yeah.
Really good way of connecting with the environment. If you're safe to do that, you can go outside and you can free bleed onto the ground. Not for everyone.
No, it's a very
free-spirited.
Individual practice, I would say.
I think it's all quite individual.
Well, yeah, I mean, all witchcraft is, isn't it?
Yeah.
But then there's talk about saliva, using your saliva, using your hair,
breath.
There's mention here of urine, using urine as
Yeah,
like a cleansing
actually,
tool.
using urine in hexes is quite common, actually, and spit as well.
Yeah.
And semen.
Yeah, and semen as well.
Sorry. But yeah. Yeah. I mean, bodily fluids is a very, very common thing to be in witchcraft, and there might be some fluids that you're comfortable using and some that you aren't. I was explaining an interesting story to you about using menstrual blood earlier. First time that I've collected it from myself. And very, very strangely, I then didn't bleed for like the longest period. I didn't have my bleed for well over 2 months, I think. And I wonder if I didn't do something right, or there was some kind of like disconnect there. But as soon as I released the blood to the earth, my cycle came back.
Wow.
So
very
interesting.
So interesting.
Yeah, and at the time I was like, "Oh, this is taboo. This is different." Like I was just trying it out, and I haven't collected it since actually.
Yeah,
but my body's changing because I'm getting older, and my cycle is changing. So,
yeah, it's very interesting. I read a book called The Blood Witch, and I never thought it would be something that would interest me, using blood in witchcraft, but it was a really interesting book. It's quite short. I can't remember the author. Of course I can't. Should have brought it with me. But they talk a lot around being really responsible for the use of blood, and being, again, in the right headspace to use it. And only using we've all watched movies, haven't we? And you kind of see people like slicing themselves open to use a blood. That's not what it is. It's literally pricking yourself with on the end of your finger with a needle, and just a drop.
Yeah.
Literally a drop. And obviously,
I think that's probably quite
sanitized. Sorry?
I said I think that's probably quite individual too, because I think about a lot of these people that self-harm, and there's a lot of that's probably like a big release. And that's not just a prick, is it? That's well, it depends on the person. But I think the sanitization, is that a word?
sanitisation.
is a really good point, because obviously there are lots of diseases that can be passed in blood in any bodily fluid, actually. So hygiene is really important. Hygiene, spiritual hygiene, one and the same. You know, you want to be careful of diseases, and you equally want to be careful of energy that you're not inviting. So
yeah, it's I think you've got to be really, really ready and, you know, considered if you're going to use blood in witchcraft. I don't think it's like, you know, you come into you know, as a new witch and you start doing it straight away. I think it's a very...
If you do, I'd say you are bold.
Yes, it's a very bold.
Very bold move.
Well, I was just thinking then, talking about respecting blood use, as it were. You know, we have the blood of Christ. We talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, it's quite...
Drink it every Sunday,
It's quite interesting, actually, because when you think about Catholicism...
Completely.
And literally going to Mass is like going to a ritual.
100%.
And then you're literally, at the end, going up and eating the body and drinking the blood of Christ.
With
That's
a
mad.
symbol of, you know, the man like bleeding out on a cross.
Yeah, I know.
You know, with a crown of thorns.
Growing up, because you grew up with it, you don't think anything of it. No. But then now coming to, you know, the witchcraft practice and kind of looking at these things and being like, oh, I don't know. But then growing up, you've been ingrained with
but I think that's part of the fear that they're instilling in you from a young age. You know, I think that seeing all that iconography and, you
100%.
know, the sort of the blood and the flesh of Christ and all of the karmic retribution and all of that, like I think that it's a really slow process of making you fearful.
100%.
You know, so that you stay in line and you do what you're told and you are, you know, contributing to society.
And I think only now, really, in the past year, have I started to explore, and like talking to you about it is so good, the fear connected with that and the inner child wounds that, without you even really thinking about it, are so drummed into you.
I mean, same with me. Like I've got lots to unpick with Christianity for me, because I was brought up in every kind of like Christian school, church, Bible camp, all of that. And there is so much to address.
It's like I'm slowly unraveling this.
And the thing is, it's in all of our huge systems as well. So, you know, we're not just dealing with the fact that we might have been taken to church for Christmas Mass, or that's not what it's called, whatever the Mass is before Christmas, you know, or taken there on a Sunday. But it's in like all of our legal system, it's in our schools, it's in our medical, you know, like there's always a priest at the hospital for people that are about to pass away. I'm actually, I'm studying being a death doula at the moment.
Yes.
I feel very, very passionately about the subject of death and it not being a scary thing, but it being a really beautiful thing. And I feel sad that when so much pain is happening in the world, or like in hospitals when you know, parents might be losing a child, or like a child might be losing a parent or whatever, that the only option is a priest, and that priest doesn't know anything about them. And the whole process of being a death doula is about bringing that connection back, that earth-based connection, and providing those rituals.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, I do think it's really beautiful. And I think it's not just something for the people dying. You know, it's, for starters, it's seeing someone through their most triumphant part of their life. But it's also a part of, you know, helping the living deal with their grief in a beautiful way. And for me, death witchcraft and, you know, dark magic and death doula is all one and the same.
One and the same.
Yeah.
It's so lovely hearing you talk about it as well, because at the moment with everything in life at the moment, I've been watching various things, but there's like a real lack of meaning. People are finding that there's like a real lack of meaning of life. And one of the things that they all really feel is at the end of life, like, what is the meaning to have? So, and some of these people are not religious. So actually to have a death doula instead, to bring beautiful moments of clarity or peace or the meaning or whatever that might be is so helpful and so beautiful.
You just don't see that much in the UK, especially. Nope. Like, I mean, before you told me about it, I'd never heard of a death doula.
Nope. So...
They also used to be called a death midwife as well. You might have heard. That might like...
Nope.
Okay.
But how beautiful would that be if you had that option to work with somebody else that isn't a priest,
Yeah.
or even like going to a funeral director, I assume that death doula would be involved in that process too.
Yeah,
Like,
I mean, there's so much in terms of because I think when we think of funerals, they really are for the people that are alive. They're not for the person that's died. So there's two parts to being a death doula. There's the part where you're actually assisting the person dying through that last transition. And there's something called death nesting, where if you're a family member, you can literally wrap your body around them like they did when you were a child.
Oh, it makes me want to cry. Sorry.
And you're providing that similar situation where you're then becoming almost like the parent and allowing them to be comfortable and in that embrace and pass over. So there's the process of assisting the person dying, and then there's the process of looking after the people that have to stay living. And
It's amazing.
but how amazing is that to have that person that also got to know the person that was dying, like
Before
your
they're
family member
dead.
before they're dead.
So
And
when
then
there is a
go-
funeral,
Yeah.
it's
Exactly.
way more
actually know-
connected.
and won't say the name wrong.
Yeah,
exactly.
It doesn't know them, and it's
And it's just saying
speaking-
random stuff that's just
Yeah.
written in front of them.
Well, think about when you go to a wedding and you have an officiant there. Is that the right word? Yeah. And they don't know the couple. They've never met them. And they come and they deliver something that's got no connectedness at all, no sense of feeling or understanding of the couple, which is why when Tom and I got married, we went and did the legal bit, didn't really tell anyone about it. And then we got my older sister to lead our ceremony.
Oh, that's
and it was so
gorgeous.
beautiful. And it had so much meaning for us. And I think it's the same thing, it's providing that flavor, that character of that human, and honoring their life and providing that ritual that helps people deal with their grief, but also celebrate their life.
Yeah.
It's so amazing, and it's extraordinary that you don't hear about it more.
But going back to the topic of this episode,
Yeah.
many people would see that as dark witchcraft.
Right.
Just working with death in general.
In fact, a friend of mine, and she might listen to this, she said to me the other day, bless her, she's lovely, but she said to me, why do you want to get involved in all of that really miserable stuff? Like, it's really negative, isn't it? And I was like, I don't find it negative. I find it beautiful. Like, I feel emotional talking about it because I think it's so beautiful. And it is...
Because it's a natural part of life.
It is the most natural part of life. It's as natural as birth. And, I do understand that people see it as dark witchcraft, but I think that all of these parts of ourselves that we try and hide, the shame and the guilt and the death and the grief and the, rage, all of that is such a natural part of life, and it needs to be embraced in the same way as the light stuff is.
100%.
The joy, the happiness, the peace, we are complex beings, and they are so interwoven with each other. And actually, those shadow parts of us are a huge part of who we are today. And I can say certainly for myself, they are one of the best parts of myself, because they are going through all of that stuff that I went through with my abusive ex and my difficult upbringing and stuff like that have made me who I am today. And I know that I'm a better person now than I was before I was in that abusive relationship.
100%.
Because going through that process changed the way that my compassion and my empathy for others and my ability to look inwards. I probably shouldn't really be saying this, but I'm trying to write a book about death at the moment. As part of my death witchcraft. And what I've had to do is I've had to address every single type of death that I've experienced in my life, from experiencing a near-death experience when I was 4, losing my granddad when I was sort of 13 or 14, to losing my identity in that relationship, to losing a child when I was in my early 30s, and there's more death that I'll experience, but people don't see things like loss of identity as a death, because I see that end of that relationship as a form of death.
That was a huge death.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
And what I would say about this potential book, I'll keep saying potential book.
It's going to happen.
It is the most profound type of shadow work that I've ever done.
Wow.
Because it's really making me address my whole life. It's so interesting. It's not unlike doing a journal. I think. But there's a different layer to it because there's the possibility that other people might read it.
Yeah.
So it's extremely exposing.
Yeah.
And actually writing about those different versions of death really helped me process them. So
That's so interesting.
This is the thing. Sorry, my brain
go on.
is. This is the thing that is amazing about witchcraft. And I said this to you both in a text message, actually, but doing dark magic, shadow work, and, you know, the lighter side of it, all of it encompasses a feeling of hope. Sorry, microphone. But it encompasses a feeling of hope. So even going into the depths of yourself, to the real darkness, doing a curse, doing a hex versus a love spell, there is this amazing sense of hope throughout all of it. There's not this, and I think that's the thing that, as I speak about it more and more, I begin to understand, it begins to come into my body, is there, it is this feeling of hope that with the dark and the light, you move forward. So I really resonate with you talking about the death of an identity with a relationship. Definitely the end of my marriage was the death of that Lizzie.
Yeah, totally.
And then moving on into this new skin completely. And that's the beauty of witchcraft, is that it is always authentically about you and what you practice and what you believe in and what you feel. And all of it, that's the only way I can describe it. It just gives you hope.
You're honouring the different parts of yourself.
Exactly.
Different parts of your journey.
I think also it's not about you. I think that one of the beauties of it is that actually it's about the bigger picture always.
Yes, that's
true. You know, you
yeah.
are like, I feel like in witchcraft, there is so much emphasis on the individual and our transcendence to something more beautiful. And that's not how I feel. You know, the work that I want to do with death is about realizing that you are a small piece of nothing.
Yeah,
you know,
that's so true.
You are a small part of the ecosystem, the microbiome. You know, you are here for such a short amount of time, and you know, I just think that it's really just about the bigger picture, the community, the environment, the people's lives that you touch around you. You know, I think that that's what the beauty is for me.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah.
Because there is a lot, isn't there? Especially in the wellness community, it's all about being centered and about your higher power,
yeah, that's
and
true.
You know, being empowered. And you know, there's nothing wrong with that, like at all. I think that there is way too much focus on the individual. And I think that that's part of what's wrong with our society, is that we're always thinking about ourselves and making our lives better, rather than like the work that you do where you're making everyone else's lives better.
100%.
You know, and there is a lot to say about putting, you know, other people's health above your own health. That's not what I'm suggesting. But I think that if people were more genuinely trying to make the lives of others around them better, we'd be living in a much better world right now.
Yeah, for sure. 100%.
Well, and listening to other people's traumas and things is definitely dark magic, really.
Yeah.
Because it's, and holding that space for people is hard work. But yeah, I think it's really important that those spaces are available to people, for sure.
Circle holding is definitely shadow work.
Yeah.
Because not only are you creating that space for other people to share their trauma, but you're also balancing the energy in the group without sharing any of your own. You know, so when we're sat in circle, you're not there telling people about the trauma that you've experienced as a child. You're allowing them the space to talk about their own, while also making sure that everyone's voice is heard in the group, and that they aren't left just traumatized. You're like, and how does this make everyone else feel? Does anyone else feel like that we can support this member in some way?
And also checking in with them individually as well, and, you know, nurturing them. And more stuff might come up for them when you're in that one-to-one zone with them, where they're, you know, unleashing the more darkness, really. And that's, you're guiding them through their shadow work there, whether you realise that or not. And it's so important.
And I don't want to put words in your mouth, but what you've done might also be the most profound shadow work that you've ever done, by creating that space and holding those regular circles. I mean,
Yeah.
that's got you have to be incredibly grounded to be able to do that kind of work.
Yeah, I think people don't realize that you also need to be continuing to do the work on yourself. And sometimes I've forgotten about myself. And I need to come back round and be like, hang on a minute, I need to make sure that I'm still doing my work, my shadow work, and dealing with my stuff too. So I have the ability to hold that space for other people.
Yeah.
And I think when I first started, when I first started the coven, I didn't realise that. And yeah, it is so important. So important.
I think as well, like on the last retreat, we had an incredible circle, and it was beautiful. And you both held the space and you let everybody share their stories, but you would let them go till they were finished, if that makes sense. So you were just holding and letting them speak till they had shared everything. Then you could comfortably move on. And things like you were both saying, thank you for sharing that. You were acknowledging the shadow. Because it's so
I did
important
actually feel thankful, to be honest.
Yeah.
I did fully feel thankful that they felt safe
So
in that space to
Exactly.
say their piece.
Yeah.
But equally, trying to balance energy is quite a difficult one, because you naturally have more dominant characters in a group, and you have quieter characters, and you have sometimes trauma dumping. And, it's difficult because, we've spoken about how we almost need to have set boundaries at the beginning, because for Steph and I, we're fully prepared to hold that space when we're in it. But sometimes when we end the day, the trauma keeps coming. And actually, we need to be really clear that, and that's us learning about our own sort of boundaries with shadowcraft as well.
Yeah. So you're always learning it.
Yeah, constantly.
I would also say that leading sessions online and in person are very different kettles of
Energy-wise,
fish.
yeah. Yeah.
And it's a lot of energy to hold space in person than it is online. You almost have a little protective barrier with your computer screen, in a way. So
you do that because you feel the energy in the room. And also what's interesting about group dynamics is as the circle goes around, the emotion gets more and more loaded, which is why it's actually, we've realized it's important for us to not end with talking.
That's such a good point.
Because you're carrying the emotion for all the people in the group. And by the time it comes back round to you, you're holding everyone's trauma. So it's, we're always learning. And I feel really proud of the way that we held space in October.
It was amazing. You should be really proud.
Yeah,
but that is a way. Circle going and being attendee at a circle is a way of doing shadow work.
Yeah.
And doing dark magic in a way. I mean, depending on what circle you attend.
I feel like an online coven is a really good starting space, because I think that you have to be ready for a physical meeting, because if you're not feeling emotionally sound and then you go to a place where people like to share their trauma, you might not be feeling resilient to that. And so maybe an online space is actually a really good starting point, because you've got that protective screen in front of you. Yeah.
Moving
on to something completely different. I wanted to go back to, we talked about blood magic, but we didn't kind
Talk
of
about bones.
bones.
Yeah, I kept thinking about that, but then the conversation got really interesting. I collect bones. I don't know about the rest of you.
I don't actually have any, but I wouldn't be opposed to collecting them. But one thing that I did have a question of is, would you ever buy bones?
Yeah, I would.
Would you?
Because I'd love to have a human skull.
Really?
Yeah, I think that it's absolutely
How would you go about
magic.
sourcing something like that, though?
From someone that sells them. I follow a few people that sell human skulls. I think that there is a big question of whether they're ethically sourced or not. But a lot of these skulls are stolen through colonialism anyway.
Wow.
which is interesting. I mean, it's a whole subject. I'll be honest, I don't feel equipped to talk about it.
Yeah.
The bones and skulls that I own now are animal ones, and I found them myself. I found a boar skull, absolutely amazing. It's like huge.
Oh, you told me
Yeah.
about
You've
this.
probably seen it.
Yeah.
It's in your living room,
Yeah,
isn't
it's
it?
in my living room, yeah. And I went to a derelict farm with a friend and found it and felt a little bit too nervous to take it. So that's where my fear came
There
in.
you go.
And I could not stop thinking about it for the next 2 days. And I was like, why didn't I take it? Why am I afraid? I really want to address this feeling I have. And I went and I collected it the next day. I think that there was some like fear around whether it was clean,
Yeah,
whether I
okay.
could pick up any kind of disease, whether I would be inviting any kind of energy, whether I was disturbing it and that was disrespectful. But I felt really, really drawn to go back and collect it. And I brought it home, and it had no flesh on it or anything like that. And I cleaned it. And it's been a really, really valued possession of mine. I don't think possession is quite the right word. Sacred item of mine for a long time. I've used it on my altar. I've used it in music videos. I've used it in
Love that.
photos. I feel it's been featured in a local newspaper because it was found in Guildford, and they used to be native in Guildford, and now there aren't any boar there. So yeah, and it's got some teeth, and it's just fascinating, and I really love it.
I think
I really love it.
I'd want to collect bones. And I had a moment, I don't know if you both remember.
Oh, yeah.
I've got this favourite tree in the woods that I go to, and I call it the Three Witches because it comes from the same trunk, and they three splinter out. And right in the centre, one day was a huge bone, and it wasn't like, it was clearly like I think a deer bone or something. I don't know if you remember. It was huge.
Yeah.
And I stood there for ages, that I felt like the tree was saying, take it, and I didn't. And I said to you, I think I texted both of you saying, I should have taken that bone.
Yeah.
And you said, well, go back and get it. It's obviously meant for you. Anyway, I went back and it was gone.
It's a shame that you didn't get that bone, but I have no doubt that you'll find one in the future, especially like growing, living around this area.
Yeah.
Excuse me. I have collected lots of bones. I went to the Isle of Man with a friend of mine, and on the coast, there's just loads of like bird bones everywhere. And I was like collecting all of them. You just need to go to areas where there are bones. So sorry, I couldn't swallow. Your mouth goes really dry. I was like, why can't I swallow? If you go to areas like Wales, or, Scotland, where there's a lot of land, that's when you tend to find more bones. Yeah. And I remember being we went to a friend's wedding in Wales, and then we went for a big walk the next day, and one of the people found a whole spine.
Whoa!
It must have been like a sheep spine or something. Totally amazing. So yeah, maybe we need to do a little trip.
Let's do a
collect
trip.
bones.
But then there's bone throwing, isn't there?
Oh, yeah.
As a divination form. I haven't made my own bone set yet, but it's something on my agenda.
Yeah, and then you're going to do
interesting timing. Ding.
and then you're going to do some bone readings for people, right? Maybe.
If I can swallow again. Yeah, I would love to, because I think that again, that feels like a really sacred tool. Like you can make it out of stones, but I think something that's come from a living animal holds so much meaning. That animal had a whole life.
Yeah.
And then they represent a symbol as part of a divination reading.
Well, it's like the same with drums and shamanic drums. They're made out of deer skin. And actually, I've been learning a little bit about incorporating drums into some of our retreats. Well, I already have in some of our sessions, but I've been learning more about that and taking people on a journey and things like that. But yeah, the drum, I saw a really beautiful drum, which was made by Heron Drums, and they are sourced ethically and sustainably. I think it was Finland, and from a deer that had passed on, and otherwise the skin would be discarded. So. But I'm doing one of his courses, actually. It's all about the spirit of the drum and actually connecting to the animal. And it's just, I think it's just so beautiful.
I agree.
But yeah.
Amazing.
I've really enjoyed this episode, actually. And it's been quite enlightening to kind of talk about dark magic in a slightly different way and kind of learn more about it as well.
absolutely.
So yes, thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
I hope you all enjoyed this episode at home, and if you've got any tips or if you practiced the darker side of witchcraft at home, please do let us know in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel, and we'll see you all soon for another episode of Embracing Magic.